listening to Why I Vaccinate. I'm Ann Thomas. I'm here with my co host, Veronica McNally. And our next guest is Cathy Murray. She's a psychology teacher with the Port Huron District. It's the Port Huron Northern High School. She also represents over 500 teachers in Port Huron as the union president. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
And Veronica, I'm going to let you kick this segment off with Cathy.
Cathy, it's so great to have you here. I know you have a really unique perspective in that you work with 9th through 12th graders, and you've done so during this crazy time in learning. Can you talk about your students and how they did last year and their excitement for return to in-person learning?
I think a lot of my students really had an interesting experience. We started back in a hybrid situation. We were full face-to-face at times. We were completely virtual at times. My students were very excited to get back full face-to-face at the end of the year. And so I think they're looking forward to this in the coming school year.
What about vaccination? There was a period of time while they were still in school and the vaccination became available for that adolescent age group. What was the buzz and what have you seen since its release?
So I had a lot of students who were very excited about the opportunity to be vaccinated. And I also had the opposite occur. I had students who were not interested in being vaccinated. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, if we could just get vaccinated, things would be back to normal sooner. So we'll see what happens this school year. I'm hoping lots more parents have taken opportunities to get their students vaccinated.
And as a teacher, what do you tell these parents or these kids who express concern?
Well, I always say, as a psychology teacher, we look at science, we deal with scientific method. I trust scientists. I trust people who have worked on this. I mean, we didn't send our students out to create a vaccine. We sent our best and our brightest in our community who have higher education to create this vaccine. Although I do think we have a lot of students who could have been very valuable in this process, I think that we spent lots of time and money and energy to find a vaccine that would work.
You being in the classroom, and you've been in the classroom for a number of years now, how do the kids socialize? Do they sit close together? Do things spread in the classroom?
Oh, absolutely. We are very fortunate in Port Huron. We have lots of flexible furniture and things like that. And so you put them in groups often and you have to work with them. Last year was a unique year. You couldn't do that. You tried to socially distance as much as possible, but it is impossible in classrooms. Our classrooms were built to hold 30 students and not to be socially distanced. They were to be, elbow partners and things like that. And so it is very challenging as an educator to keep kids socially distanced. And you've always seen illnesses run through classrooms, whether it's chickenpox or whatever it was prior to a vaccine, you would always see those things. Common colds run through the classroom. This is far more dangerous.
And I think that really hits home for us, the importance of not only COVID vaccination in this age group, but also making sure they're caught up on all their vaccines as they return to school. And I know you had some questions for Cathy.
Cathy, as the union president, what is the temperature of your teachers? How are the teachers feeling about going back to the classroom, about being vaccinated, about wearing masks?
So I feel like we're really fortunate in Port Huron. The majority of our teachers are vaccinated. Yes, I mean, that's not everyone, but I feel like the majority of us took advantage of it. St. Clair County actually did a fantastic job with the rollout for educators. They had an entire system put together for vaccinations at the RISA or ISD, and it was phenomenal. Any educator who wanted to get vaccinated could, and it was a well-oiled machine. I think that we have lots of teachers who are very excited to go back, but you still have many who have compromised immune systems, who have asthma, who have underlying health conditions that have never been an issue before that are now very, very troublesome. I have teachers who are very worried, educators who are very worried.
I think we can all agree that the best thing in the world would be for everyone to get vaccinated and to get these kids back in the classroom. I mean, your expertise is in psychology, you're a psychology teacher. We've been hearing throughout the entire pandemic about how teens are really struggling with their mental health. Can you talk a little bit about that, Cathy?
So I've had friends who have student or have children who have been have had COVID, and it's really challenging for them to get caught up on schoolwork. It's incredibly challenging for them to stay focused on schoolwork. It is um, that brain fog that many people have complained about is real. It's absolutely essential that we get people vaccinated so that things can get back to normal. I had students last year who did struggle because they weren't in class every day. Whether we were hybrid and they were coming every other day, whether we were virtual, it was really a challenge for a lot of students. Because believe it or not, even though in the age of technology, when students want to be on their cell phones all the time or computers, they actually do want to be interacting with each other as well and their teachers. And so it is challenging to keep kids focused. And when you're sick with COVID, as someone who's had COVID prior to vaccines coming out, I would say it took a long time to recover, and it still takes time. It's this fatigue is still there.
What's your biggest concern about going back to school in the fall? Like what keeps you awake at night?
So I'm in a unique situation. I have a child who's going to be entering kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
And there's no vaccine for our young students. And so, as much as I worry about secondary students, I know that they'll keep their masks on if we tell them to. About it's modeling, it's about the expectations. But my daughter, who's going to be 5 in the fall, is going to kindergarten for the first time. And, we went out and we bought cool masks so that she would have them to wear because she doesn't have a vaccine. We also have an infant at home. And so what keeps me up at night is childcare. If by some strange chance, daycare gets shut down or the school gets shut down, what do we do? My spouse is a nurse. What do we do? Because we're both on the front lines. So who's going to take care of our children? And it's also scary to me to think about how many of our students don't live with parents. They live with grandparents. They live with parents or parents who have cancer or things like that. Contracting COVID for those students could be deadly for people in their households. And that scares me. That's what's really troubling for me.
What would you say to a parent like yourself who is a little bit concerned about sending their child to school just because there are so many unknowns? What kind of advice do you have for them?
Well, I think it's really important at this point. You start with your child and you've been working on these things like hand washing and mask wearing. And if they're watching TV right now, put the mask on them. They have time to, it's a 30-minute program. Practice with a 30-minute program, Curious George, whatever it may be, put the mask on. And if they're playing video games, the rule is they have to have a mask on. If they're doing things like that, practice hand washing in between activities with them. Have hand sanitizer available. Make sure they're learning how to wipe down their own desk areas. It's nice that they know all of those items. I would try all of those things with my young children at home if I were a parent.
Those are great tips.
Yeah, they really are great tips. Cathy Murray is a psychology teacher at Port Huron Northern High School and the head of over 500 teachers in Port Huron as the union president. Thank you so much for all of the wonderful tips and for sharing your experience in the classroom with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are listening to Why I Vaccinate. Coming up next, we are going to talk to a nurse practitioner who works with teenagers. So this will be a very interesting conversation. We'll be back right after this.